advanced setup security, I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs of the security designer, you know, whether it's creating a brand new security profile, adjusting an existing one. I'm going to take you through the ins and outs of default privileges, objects, object-specific privileges, you know, and the various, you know, functions that, you know, you can do through the security designer. So right now, because it is just me and you, you know, we don't have a large class, I'm going to leave the microphones open. That way, if you do have any questions, you can either just, you know, say it, or if you don't have a mic or you're not dialed in, you can just message me via the chat feature in the GoToTraining window. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the security designer, we're only going to be visiting one screen, and that screen can be found in the administration menu. And then we click on security from the sub-menu, and then within security we select the only screen available, security designer. So with this screen on the left is just a list of any, you know, all security profiles you currently have. And on the right, you know, when you select a security profile, we see some information. We see how many non-inherited objects we have, how many inherited objects, allowed forms, meaning, you know, it's just showing a summary of default privileges. But kind of stepping away from that really quick, just dealing with profiles. When it comes to security profiles, we can use these buttons up here. So add a profile is obviously to create a brand new security profile from scratch. If you wish to rename a profile, you can just select the profile so it's highlighted, and you can click rename. Then it's going to ask you what you want the new profile name to be. That's fine. And then it will rename that profile. Inherited profiles, that's if you want to kind of create a profile. You know, you might use it for a bunch of different groups of people. Where, you know, the child privileges, meaning them, it all kind of stems from one parent set of privileges. I don't typically recommend using inherit profile because it is a little bit more restrictive in that you can't make adjustments to individual profiles. You need to make an adjustment to the parent profile, which very rarely is ever, you know, it's not typically what people want. But what I do recommend using, if you do have a lot of profiles that are kind of similar but maybe a little different, maybe the objects, meaning the functions and the screens, are the same, but one profile can only see group A, another profile can only see group B. What I would recommend using is the copy profile, meaning you would create your, you know, say I create, you know, my user 2, and I want to create another security profile that maybe, you know, user 2 is only allowed to, you know, view squad A's schedule. Maybe my next profile is only allowed to view squad B's schedule. So what I can do is I can just copy that profile and then make the adjustments. So I'm doing most of the work through a copy and paste feature with the security profile, and I'm not restricted or limited based on inheritance, which is why I recommend, you know, to really not use inheritance unless you absolutely need to, and especially when it comes to troubleshooting, inheritance can get a little tricky. And then the last option we have, delete profile. If you ever need to delete a security profile, you can just highlight the profile and click delete, and it will erase the profile. Make default, what that button is going to do is, so like right now I have basic user as my default. This is used when, you know, you're putting in a brand new employee and creating their user profile. This is just going to pull whatever, you know, our default security profile is and attach it to them until we say otherwise and change it. Otherwise, if you don't make, you know, anything a default, you just have to manually select what the security profile is going to be for any new hire. But if you have a make default, that means, you know, whenever you put in a new person, their default security is going to be whatever we said was the default security profile. So So far, so good. Just let me know. That way we can move on, or if I need to go over anything, if you didn't really quite get it. Okay, great, great. All right, so now we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty of the security designer. In its most simplest form, the security designer is composed of two things: privileges and objects. Objects are really just screens and functions that are available in the system. So the ability to request time off is an object. The screen daily schedule is an object, right? So everything you could possibly do or see in the system is an object. Now, the second half of that, privileges, is the set of rules that we can tie to an object. So the object of daily schedule, we might have privileges set that says a user can see everyone on the daily schedule. Or maybe if we want to restrict it, we can say users can only see, group X, Y, and Z on the daily schedule. So every object needs a set of privileges. Now we can do this one of two ways. If our objects all follow the same set of privileges, we would use what's called default privileges. So default privileges are like a blanket statement of privileges. What we say, if I were to click on Go to Default Privileges, we have a couple of options here. These are all expandable menus. Pretty much it's broken up to who we can view, what/who we can request for, approve with stipulation, and deny for. So when all actions encompasses all of that. However, when it comes to like a user security, you don't want to use all actions, because what happens is you can set viewable privileges, requestable privileges, approvable privileges, but if we set all actions, it's going to overwrite all of that. So this, unless we turn it off by clicking none, it will overwrite whatever we say down below it. If we turn it off, the system will then look at, okay, this is what's viewable, this is what's requestable, and you'll notice that all of these menus, or whatever you want to call them when we expand them, it's all the same stuff. So let's just open up viewable right now and kind of go through what this means. So when I expand the viewable set of privileges, this is saying that for all the objects in the system, right, for this security profile, or all the objects that we've assigned to this security profile, who can someone with this security view? Right, so now it's broken down into shifts. Is this security profile allowed to pull up any and all shifts in the system? Whether that is viewing shifts on a schedule, or say, putting in for overtime. What shifts are they allowed to select from a drop-down menu, right? That's viewable. So we could say all shifts. If we want to get a little bit more specific, we can say only the shifts in the list, and you'll notice that these three areas are grayed out, but when I click shifts in list, now this edit shifts button becomes clickable, and now I can say the specific shifts that this security profile is allowed to view. So if anything outside of the shifts that I have in this list, if I belong to this security profile, I won't see anything else but this, whether it's schedules or drop-downs. And now if the next one, self-shift, that means that I can only see whatever shift I'm currently assigned to. So if I'm assigned to, the day shift, I'm only going to see the day shift available in, drop-down options, schedules, what have you. And then entire shift of company head, you don't really need to worry about that. This is kind of like a leftover from our legacy system, but when it comes to new security, we don't really need to make that company head distinction. So now the next group, named groups, now this is saying what groups are we allowed to view? right? We said what shifts we can view, so maybe I'll just say all shifts. Now it's saying what groups are we allowed to view? And with this, once again, this goes to, schedules, drop-down menus, reports. Is it all groups? Is it just the group I belong to? Is it groups in a list that I, specify when I click groups in list, and then I just select my groups? So, we could do all groups. And now employees, this is important because under viewable, you see we have this omit self checkbox. That pretty much means you can't view yourself. And you'll notice, oops, we'll come back to that. So if I'm not allowed to view myself, which viewable isn't going to happen, right? I should be able to view myself. We would turn that on. If I'm allowed to view everyone, I'm sorry, let's turn this off so now I can see myself in a drop-down or, schedules. Am I allowed to pull up everyone and anyone? Right? Typically, you won't give this to a user. You might give this to a supervisor and up, but probably not a user, because if we do this, that means that when I pull up, a time off report, I want to see my own time off activity. If I leave it set to all employees, that means that I will be able to see everyone else's reports too. So if I'm a basic user, you probably don't want that. You would maybe only leave omit self unchecked and nothing else checked. With omit self unchecked and nothing else checked, that means that you can only view yourself and no one else. So for a user, that's what we recommend. For everyone else, you might say employees in a list, but this could be tricky because if you do have a new hire, keep in mind, then you got to start updating security profiles, or you could just say all employees. Now with title and seniority, we could also say when it comes to viewable, we can kind of tighten that up based on title or seniority. So maybe I'm only allowed to view people equal to my self-title. So if I have a title of let's just say officer, and detectives and officers are the same ranking, this would allow me to view officers and detectives. So maybe I'll turn that on. And then less than self-title, so this means anyone below me I can see, but if I leave greater than self-title unchecked, anyone above my ranking I can't see. So this might be of some interest to you. Same thing with seniority. If I want to view someone equal to me in seniority, greater or less than, keep in mind you can turn on or turn off as many boxes as you want, right? You could do equal and greater than, or equal and less than. It's totally up to you. And that's pretty much the options available for viewable, requestable. So what we just went through, it's the same principle for whether it's viewable or requestable. Now it's, okay, what shifts can we request for? Meaning if I want to put in for overtime, what shifts am I allowed to put in a request for overtime for? Same thing with groups, employees. So like with supervisors, maybe your supervisors are only allowed to put in requests for his own squad. Then you could say, self-group, maybe self-shift, or, if you want to get specific, shifts in the list. You can do that, or all shifts, give yourself some flexibility. And then same thing with like employees, omit self, unchecked, all employees, checked. But now when it comes to things like approvable, maybe, I'm a supervisor, and I can approve everyone else's time off, but I cannot approve my own. In that case, we would say, for approvable, omit self, and then check all employees. That means I can approve anyone else's time off but my own. But if you come into this screen with the mindset that this all kind of means the same thing, but based on whether it's approvable, requestable, viewable, like I said, unless everything in whether for viewable and below are the same, you don't want to use all actions. You want to turn it off. But if say you have a pretty loose set of security rules and everything's just all shifts, all groups, all employees, well, then you could just go to all actions and say all shifts, all groups, all employees. And what that is going to do is tell the system, We don't care whether it's viewable, requestable, approvable, deniable, approve a stipulation. It's always going to be all shifts, all groups, all employees. And then when you're done, make sure you save, and then it's going to bring you back to this screen. So good so far. Okay. And like I said, these are default privileges, meaning these are going to be applied to any object that we allow in this security profile. So now let's go into our objects. So if I click on Update Objects, what we're looking at now is a list of every screen and every function in the system. And as you can see, it is quite an extensive list. However, we do give you filters to kind of make your life easier. We give you filters and categories. Now keep in mind, this is what we categorize it as. You may categorize something different, meaning if we say, screen X is a supervisor screen, well, our versions of supervisor may be different. Maybe in your case, that's not something a supervisor would need. So, this isn't, the category names aren't the end-all, be-all. This is just what we suggest based on, the majority of our clients. So, things like putting in and awarding an open shift. To us, that's a supervisor function, but maybe to you, only admins do that, you know what I mean? So, this is just kind of more of like a suggestion. So with this screen right here, so this allowed column is just pretty much just check boxes, right? And if we are going to give this screen or this function to this security profile, we check the box. The next column, category, like we just went over, this is just what each screen is kind of classified as. So like, activity log, that's an admin type screen. Inbox, outbox, that's a basic user or employee screen. Reports, obviously it's a report, so it's categorized as a report. We do have some things that are uncategorized just because they're kind of independent, right? There's not enough of them to really group it. It's just random screens here and there. We do have payroll categories, supervisor, so like, setting up bid shifts. To us, that's a supervisor function. Maybe to you it's not, but it's categorized under supervisor. And we have, training is referencing the training module. Same thing with like extra duty, that's referencing the extra duty module. Also, when you create tiled profiles, they appear in the security as well, so you'll see tiled profile as a category. And then, obviously, name is just referring to, that particular screen or function, so award open shifts, that's a screen. They're pretty much all screens, right? But it's also referring to functions as well. Things like putting in for overtime, it'll bring you to that screen. Employee list, rules, all kinds of stuff. So now these last four columns right here, this first one, desktop, and you notice we have a bunch of X's in each row under desktop. This is referring to an object that belongs to the desktop program, meaning the schedule app that you have to install on a computer. If you see an X next to anything under desktop, that means that this object is available on the desktop application. You will notice there are a couple of things without X's in them. That means, but there's X's under web. That means that it is only on the web portal. Now keep in mind, a lot of these things, when you say categories, do you mean like the actual category names? Because we are constantly adding things to the web portal. I don't know necessarily if we're categorizing it based on the web portal, right? Like things like, putting in for time off. Whether you do it through the web portal or the desktop application, that's an employee function, right? So it's going to be categorized under employee. Another thing I do want to add, because someone actually asked me about it not too long ago, they said, we noticed that there are some things that, it's available on the desktop, but not on the web portal. But then there was another screen that was only available on the web portal and not the desktop, and it was the same name. There are some objects in here that were created just for the web portal, but it does the same thing as a desktop. I would say 99% of everything we have in the desktop application is available on the web portal. However, it might be its own object if it's brand new, right? If you happen to see an object that only has a privilege set for desktop as opposed to web portal, chances are that's just a tile that you can add to your dashboard in the desktop. The daily notes. So we do have daily roster with notes available on the web portal, and that is categorized as a report. Okay, so daily details is it's a tile within the desktop application. So like here, it's not showing up because we don't have that tile currently available in the web portal. But like I said, eventually the push is to get everything on the web. So if it's not there now, it's either going to be there or it might be redesigned. It might not be called the same thing, but we're going to give you what you need on it. But yeah, so right now, I mean, like I said, the majority of the screens that are available on the desktop are available on the web. However, certain things like tiles and stuff, because you do have a certain level of customization with the desktop application that you might not have with the web portal, in regards to creating dashboards and adding tiles such as a daily details tab or like a training tab, things like that. Those are all screens exclusive to the desktop application. But like I said, we are constantly adding things to the web portal with each new update. Okay, great. And you notice I was able to find what screen we were trying to look for just by typing in the word daily in this blank row right here. This is a nice kind of search feature where it just utilizes keywords and pretty much whatever I put in here, it's going to pull up any object with that letter or word in it, right? If I type in L, it's going to give me everything with an L in it. If I want to look for, say, I'm looking for a time off screen, but maybe I can't remember exactly what it was, I can just type in the words, time off. And boom, this is all the screens with the word time off in it. So even if you can't necessarily remember the exact name of the screen, you can search for it this way. Or if well, this is probably a supervisor category, so I'm going to type in supervisor. Same thing with web and desktop specific. Right, so I type in an X in web, it's going to give me everything available on the web. Now the next column, specific. If you remember, I mentioned in the beginning of this class, we have things like default privileges, which are blanket privileges, but we also have object-specific privileges. So these are privileges that don't follow the default privileges, and it's only for a specific object that we tell it to. And what I mean by that is maybe for viewable, we said you can only view squad A. But maybe in the daily schedule screen, I want to be able to view everyone, but just in that screen and no other screen but that. So if I were to type in, daily schedule, and I want to add a specific privilege because I don't want this screen following the default rules, it's going to have its own set of rules. I'm going to highlight it, and then down here in this bottom right corner, I'm going to click Add Privilege. Now it's going to open up this screen. Looks a little familiar. Once again, now I can just say, okay, all groups, all shifts, all employees, uncheck omit self, and save. Now we see that there's an X under specific next to the daily schedule object. That means that the daily schedule does not follow the default privileges. Instead, it's going to follow its object-specific privileges. Are you pretty good with what specific privileges mean as far as them being different from default? Or if you need me to give you a couple more examples. Okay, great, great. I want to make sure, because security can get confusing if you're a little unsure about anything. And if we ever needed to remove a privilege or edit it, if I just, and I see there's an X here and I want to get rid of it, I can highlight it and now it says remove privilege. Or if I need to edit it, I can click go to privilege and it will bring me back to that previous screen and I can make my changes. I'll just remove that one. And then inherited, like I said, if you're using inheritance, there will be an X under any object that was inherited from another profile. But I really want to stress try to stay away from inheritance as much as possible because it is restricting. So if I create a basic officer security profile and then I have a Department A officer security profile inheriting from that parent profile, I won't be able to make any changes. Meaning, if I have a set of objects inherited from another profile, I can't adjust privileges. I can't uncheck the box to allow it. You know what I mean? Okay, great. Okay, good, good. Yep, smart guy. I mean, and so that's pretty much it. As far as, creating, editing security profiles. Oops. And, for at least user and supervisor, you're going to need to do that. But if you're trying to create an admin profile, it's pretty simple. We just check this box, security administrator, like so for this one. You'll notice that the box is checked. What that means is you'll notice object 0, 0. This is just saying there are no privileges, there are no objects. You just have 100% access to the system. You get everything. You don't need to fill anything out, and you just get 100% of it. So do you have any questions for me? Because that's kind of, it as far as the security designer. Okay, great, great, great. So yeah, I mean, if you needed to create, new profiles or make any changes to it, you think you have a pretty good handle of it, by all means, go ahead. If you do ever need help, maybe, you took the class and you thought you had it, but now you're having some trouble with stuff, you could always sign up for a help out, and whether it's me or another associate, we'll be more than happy to kind of go through and get your security squared away with exactly what you need. And we do have those help outs available. Sporadically, and we're constantly adding some. So if you go to the registration page today, there might not be, one offered next week when you need it. But then if you look, later on, like we're constantly adding them every day. So keep an eye out on that registration page, because we are adding, obviously as our availability opens up, we add more help out. So if you ever need anything, whether it's security or anything else setting up in the system, or if you're just having difficulty getting something done in the system, by all means, sign up for a help out or put in a tech support ticket. But if you don't have any questions for me, no problem. I'll go ahead and end it. And I'm sure I will be talking with you soon in a future class. And have a good day.